Yeah, basically you've got to train the child uh, to deliberately misconstrue reality, because whenever the child construes reality for itself in its own way, you punish it really, really harshly. So eventually the child just learns that seeing reality as it is a very dangerous occupation, and seeing reality as it's supposed to be is a rewarded behaviour. Simple as that. You know, it's total psychological submission. You put them in a double bind where they can't get out, where there's, you know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, and eventually the child's mind fragments. And that is, Gregory Bateson saw this environment actually creating schizophrenia. I mean, schizophrenia is a huge umbrella term, but
That makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of like, say, for example, a child's being abused,
yeah,
but their parent says, I'm doing this because I love you, this is love.
exactly.
Then they go, they know, they must feel in their entire being this is not love, but yeah, they can't help but, because they're dependent on that caregiver, they're dependent on that relationship, so they split their mind. Yeah, I can see how that would work.
One of the principles for the double bind theory to work is that the person applying the double bind must have the power of life and death. A parent has the power of life and death over a child by default. You know, in a political prisoner scenario, it's just like, you do as you're told, or you're going to get horribly tortured and then executed. So where the power of life and death is there, you may not question your torturer, you may not question your interrogator. The example Gregory Bateson gave was saying, you know, when people in hospitals drug the patients and say it's for the good of the patients, when actually it's for the convenience of the hospital staff. That's an example of an incongruence in the meta communication. It'll probably, like, if you go and look it up, take about 20 minutes, but it's well worth it. It's an awesome model for describing
Gregory Bateson.
Gregory Bateson, yeah.
Yeah, I've just written his name down.
Double bind, yeah. So yeah,
that
I think
makes a lot of sense. And I tell you, it's quite a taboo thing though to say, because a lot of the parents of schizophrenic children are like, whoa, how did this happen? This is what I've noticed.
Yes, and we were discussing another person who must remain nameless the other day, where there's a bit of Munchausen syndrome by proxy at work, and as soon as I spoke to him, I immediately thought of Gregory Bateson. Not that I don't think there isn't a biological root to the problems that are there, but I think that these things can be exacerbated massively by a sick social environment, an unhealthy social environment.
I mean, what about as well in terms of schizophrenia, the abuse of drugs?
I think there's loads has been written about what the effect of acid has on the brain, and how there are specific functions in the brain that are switched on, specific functions in the brain that are switched off by acid, and you can actually induce an artificial experience of schizophrenia through the taking of acid. Have you ever taken acid?
Hey?
Have you ever taken acid?
No?
No. I took it a lot when I was younger. I think that counts for a lot of things. I thought that I could force an enlightenment. I actually, when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just keep taking that, and then eventually I will know everything to this. And that didn't really work. It doesn't work like that. But
wow.
No, there is your reality filter breaks. Fundamentally, that's what acid does. Is it breaks open the reality filter, and just information falls in, and your ability to slice it, say this is important, this is not important, goes out the window. And that's why people sit there staring at the wall, watching the swirly patch, going, ooh, because they can't. It's just, you can't function. But yeah, what made you ask about drugs?
Hey?
What made you ask about drugs? Have you got a
Because my friend of the family, well, actually my sister's ex-partner, he became schizophrenic after taking a lot of drugs, a lot of acid. He was taking acid from the age of 12, pretty much every weekend. And when he was in his early 20s, he had a breakdown, really. He'd stopped taking it, but he had a skateboarding accident and he knocked his head and had a temporal lobe epilepsy attack.
Yeah.
So he had a little bit of damage, and then added to that, he went abroad somewhere, and he was trying to bring some hash back with him on the plane. Got really paranoid, that he was going to get caught, so he ate all of the hash in the toilet.
That'll help. That'll do it.
Long after that, my sister came home and he was just catatonic in front of the TV watching the snow on the television set.
Right. Right.
And his behaviour had started to become more and more strange and bizarre, but that was really the final straw when she came home and saw him like that.
And then he was diagnosed by a professional as schizophrenic.
He was hospitalised and he was diagnosed originally, as schizophrenic. But the thing is, he only started to hear voices and see things coming through the walls after he started taking the medication.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was only after he started taking the medication he became extremely religious. He started carving crosses into his arms, crosses all over the walls, in his blood, and thinking demons were coming through the walls after him, only after he went into the hospital.
And this was this is as a result of the medication they were given to cure him actually made his vision worse.
Yeah, and he tried to hang himself as well while in hospital.
It's a funny. I mean, the whole pharmacology, the whole psychopharmacology thing is such a huge topic, isn't it? But this whole shotgun blast approach, where it's like you seem to be displaying these symptoms, so we're going to take this drug and we're just going to fire drugs at you until one of them sticks, until one of them cures you. It's quite frightening, really, isn't it?
The interesting thing about his case as well. Oh, you've gone again.
Oh, I'm still here. It's just darkness.
Okay. It's the darkness again.
It's the darkness.
They'd had a child, and it was when the child was born, he could not handle it. He could not handle it because as soon as he had a child, it started to remind him of his own vulnerability, and he was a kid.
Right.
I think that's probably quite a common thing. For people who've been abused once they have a kid, and they're faced with the child itself somehow. I don't know how it works. It's just a hunch, really. Yeah.
No, I imagine. You could think of a lot of reasons why that would really set you off. Why that would make things. I mean, because effectively the horror of that is we all have a horror that we're concerned to our parents. But then if you've actually got a kid and you've had a really bad upbringing, then your fear is that you'll do the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. So unfortunately, in his case, he was hospitalised for the 15 years of my niece's life.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he's in a halfway house now, but he'll never ever recover. And what I should say about him as well is that he is an extremely talented musician. He can play any instrument, extremely talented artist. He can draw really realistically. And he's also a chemistry genius as well.
Wow.
He was actually making his own acid. That's kind of part of the problem.
Wow.